He knows that we need a common sense approach. Well, could we give Mr. Rick Waugh a round of applause? It's through the
mouth to remember me, that's all.
Well, since we do have some time left, I'm going to back it up a little bit, and Diana, if you can go ahead and set the timer for Mr. Rick Waugh to the 10 seconds. Give him a chance to introduce himself to the audience, and we will cut you off at 10 seconds, okay? Ready, set, go.
My name is Rick Waugh, running for Congress in the 7th District, and the whole purpose of my campaign is to make sure that 100% of the people are represented in Congress, not just the privileged few.
And the question was asked, why would you like to run for office?
Well, I'm upset with my opponent. It's about as simple as that.
Okay, that's great. Now, I'm going to start over. Each of the questions that I mentioned, Rick, comes from your all's website. You all had things in common like economics, healthcare, jobs, but they were just statements. So what I'm going to do is read the statement and ask each of you to elaborate. I'm going to start again. Wynne LeGrow dedicated his life to providing the residents of rural Southern Virginia with quality, affordable health care. As a physician, Wynne always used his acquired knowledge along with a common sense approach in diagnosing and treating his patients. He knows that we need a common sense approach to making our government more effective and efficient. He is running for Congress to ensure that the new health care legislation works for all Americans. Now, you are going to get 30 seconds to answer the question. And one of the questions is going to be twofold. How on earth does a new person, as a single entity, go to Washington and take a common sense approach with all the senseless stuff that's been happening there? And what will you do to improve health care? And the second part is, do you have health care for your family, and how do you have it? Rick, you want to start?
Sure. Now, as many of you know, my family, I'm married in, so I have 3 stepchildren. And currently, my family, my wife is disabled. And so she receives her insurance through Medicare. My children, of course, they're now all of age, so my oldest daughter, who's 19, she's had to drop out of some of the college classes in order to work full-time in order for her to get insurance. My son, he receives insurance through the Army.
And how about yourself?
Myself, I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I don't get injured on the campaign trail because I'm doing this full time.
Okay, thank you, Dr. LeGrow.
As far as my personal insurance, when I owned and ran a medical practice, I made sure everyone in the practice was covered by medical insurance. Since I have retired as of a couple of months ago, I am now on Medicare. And my wife, who was on the insurance with me previously, had to get her own insurance. And let me tell you, the insurance companies go after you. And there may be a rule that they have to allow everyone to get insurance, but nobody's limiting what they're charging. And it's astronomical. And I favored the health care bill, but there are many things I think need to be changed because it's going to be very expensive, and I am interested in cost.
Okay, thank you, Dr. LeGrow. Floyd, Mr. Bayne.
Well, I have my health insurance through my wife's employment here in Chesterfield County right now, and before that with my family supermarkets, so we're all covered in that regard. As far as what I would do when I get to Washington, first I'd have to find people who are of like mind so that we can work together. I certainly can't do everything by myself. And I would seek to repeal Obamacare. I don't think the federal government has any business at all being involved in health care, period. So if I can find enough people to work with me to see to it that that's repealed, that would be my task.
Thank you. The second question I have comes from education, and it was from Mr. Bayne's website. Floyd, There will always be a need for highly educated people in areas such as healthcare, clean energy, engineering, information technologies. In order to ensure that all students are highly educated in a broad range of fields, we will need to have a first-class public education system. Tax incentives for small businesses are essential to help spur job growth. Because we live in a highly competitive global economy, well-paying jobs will depend on a well-educated population. And again, I think this time we'll give you 35 seconds to answer. One of the questions is, education is always on the chopping block. The government is broke, so how will we pay for these incentives? What are the improvements you are suggesting in Congress if taxes are not the answer? Would you support or would you reject the stimulus findings that save the teacher's job, or do you really think it saved the teacher's job? Do you think we need education reform? And $5 billion stimulus money went towards education to hopefully shape our system. Let's try 40 seconds. That was a mouthful, wasn't it?
I pulled out my notebook. I'm starting to sit down.
You know what?
All right, start from the first one.
I know that was a mouthful. So let's do it with 30 seconds for the first one. Education is always on the chopping block. The government is always broke. We hear a lot about tax incentives. Where would it come from? What do you suggest if the tax incentives make us even more productive? Dr. LeGrow?
I favored the stimulus package. The stimulus package has produced to this point or saved 3 million jobs. Many of those were jobs of teachers. And I think additional federal government money will need to be spent going to states to keep our education programs alive. We cannot possibly thrive as a country if we let public education go down the drain. Graduation rates are going down, class sizes are getting larger. We need to put money into education intelligently so that we can educate our young people and move on from there.
Floyd Bayne?
My wife is a teacher. She's been a teacher for as long as we've been married. That's 29 years now. So I know what teachers have to deal with. The first thing I would do as a member of Congress is I would seek to abolish the Department of Education. It should not exist at the federal level. The responsibility for schools should be devolved back to the states and the localities where it can be more efficiently handled. We spend too much money on education now that's not getting into the classroom. Folks, we spend in Virginia, the last figures I remember seeing, over $8,000 per student per school year. Well, I can tell you where that money's not going. It's not going in the classrooms, and we need to start getting it back where it belongs, where the teachers can do the most good.
Rick?
Well, first of all, education needs to be the #1 priority in federal government, state government, local government. It needs to be the first thing that is funded, not the first thing that's cut. And everything will come before me first, before I ever even think about cutting education. So that's the first thing. Number 2, we need to stop forcing our teachers to teach to culturally biased tests. And it's not enough for children to just learn knowledge out of a book. What children crave is how that knowledge impacts them in the real world. And that's what we need to get back to.
Okay, now, some of you hinted on how many costs. $5 billion of stimulus money went towards education to hopefully shape our system. Do you think our system needs to be reshaped?
Absolutely.
I'm trying to figure out how to modify that. I'll agree with that, moving on.
The stimulus, TARP, all of these government spending bills have been an abysmal failure. My wife's a teacher. She's taking a 2% cut this year, folks. The stimulus money isn't going where it needs to go. It's a waste of time. That's what happens when the federal government gets involved. We need to get the federal government out of the mix. We need to keep the money in the states instead of sending it to Washington and then begging to get it back with strings attached. All right?